Hi there, in this video you're going to learn how to solve equations with rational coefficients. Your objectives from your takeaways from this video are basically to learn how to solve equations by using the division property of equality and to solve equations by using the multiplication property of equality. So let's start off with what a solution is. A solution is a value for the variable that makes an equation true. For example, here I have 2x equals 6. Well, you can just look at that and know that 2 times 3 equals 6. So your solution is 3 because 3 would make the equation true. Properties of equality. In a nutshell, whatever you do to one side of the equation, you have to do to the other side in order for it to remain equal or balanced. The multiplication property of equality is just if you multiply both sides in an equation with the same non-zero number, the two sides remain equal. So if you took an equation and divided both sides by 2, no matter what, both sides of the equation would still be equal. The division property of equality is just if you divide both sides of an equation with the same non-zero number, then the two sides remain equal. So same thing, if you divide both sides of an equation by 2, your equation is still going to remain balanced or equal. Inverse operations are operations that just undo each other. So the inverse of addition is subtraction and vice versa. The inverse of subtraction is addition. The inverse of multiplication is division and vice versa. Division, the inverse of it is multiplication. And equivalent expressions are equations, or I should say expressions that have the same solution. Steps. So in the original problem, here x is being multiplied by 5. So I have 5x equals 60. So this 5x means 5 times x is equal to 60. So in the original problem, x is being multiplied by 5. In order to solve for x, we need to do the inverse operation of multiplication, which is division, right? So instead of multiplying by 5, now I'm going to divide both sides by 5. Whatever you do to one side of the equation, you need to make sure that you're doing to the other. Now, if you look here, we have 5x divided by 5 is equal to 60 divided by 5. Let's simplify this now. 5x divided by 5 is actually equal to 1x, right? And 1x then is equal to 60 divided by 5 is 12. So x is equal to 12. So now, once you get your solution, now you can substitute it back into the original problem. So you just do 5 times 12 to get 60. That's how you check your work. Here's another example. We have negative x minus negative 2. With this negative x, I'm going to pretend like it's negative 1x. Because remember, if you have a variable, just a variable alone, you need to think of it as having a coefficient of 1 in front of it. Because it's not 0x, right? Because that would be 0. It's 1x, or in this case, it's negative 1x. So I just rewrote it first with negative 1x is equal to negative 2. What's being done to x? Well, it's being multiplied by negative 1. What's the inverse operation of multiplying by negative 1? Dividing by negative 1. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 1. Negative 1 divided by 1 is equal to just 1, right? So that would be 1x is equal to negative 2 divided by negative 1, which gets me positive 2. And then you would just check your work, substitute 2 back into here, and you end up getting negative 2 is equal to negative 2. Here's another example. I have 4.2x is equal to negative 52.5. So look at what's being done to x. So here I have 4.2 times x. So the inverse, or the opposite of multiplying by 4.2 is dividing by 4.2. So I'm going to divide both sides of my equation by 4.2. the 4.2s are going to cancel each other out, right? Because 4.2 divided by 4.2 is just equal to 1. So 1x is equal to negative 12.5. If you do negative 52.5 divided by 4.2, you should get negative 12.5. Okay, now we need to check. So you just plug in x back into the original problem. 4.2 times, here I don't want to confuse you, 4.2 times negative 12.5 is equal to negative 52.5. Okay, here's a word problem. It says a drive-through Safari Zoo charges $12.50 per person for admission. In 1 hour, the park raised $675 in admission fees. Write and solve an equation to find out how many people visited that hour. So if it's $12.50 per person, I'm going to make x equal to the number of people. So $12.50 times number of people should get me 675. So our goal is to figure out what the number of people was that were, admitted into the Safari Zoo. So here we have 12.5 or 12.50x is equal to 675. Fine, $12.50 times how many people is equal to the total of 675. So what's the opposite of multiplying by 12.5? Well, dividing by 12.5. So after you divide both sides by 12.5, 12.5 divided by 12.5 cancels each other out, and you should get 675 divided by 12.5, which is equal to 54. So again, on this side, these two numbers cancel each other out, and you're just left with 1x. So x is equal to, and then 675 divided by 12.5 is equal to 54. So 12.5 times 54 is equal to 675. All right, and here's our last example. We have 1/4, that should be times y. 1/4 y is equal to negative 8. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to rewrite it. 1/4 y times negative 8. And I see here that it's being multiplied by 1/4. So y is being multiplied by 1/4. So the opposite of multiplying by 1/4 would be to divide both sides by 1/4, right? Well, I just want you to, recall that when you divide by a fraction, you're actually just multiplying the reciprocal. So if I said divide negative 8 divided by 1/4, you would actually do negative 8 times 4/1. So that's what I'm going to do to both sides of my equation. I'm going to multiply it by 4/1. That's just multiplying by the reciprocal. So the inverse operation of multiplying by 1/4 would be to multiply by its reciprocal. Okay, so then you just do the inverse operation on both sides. Okay, 4/1 times 1/4 is equal to just 4/4, which is just 1y. So y is equal to, and then if you did negative 8 times 4, you get negative 32. And this would be sort of like negative 8/1. So 1 times 1 is just equal to 1. So y does equal negative 32. And then check your work. 1/4 times, here, I'll get rid of that so I don't mix you up. 1/4 times negative 32 is equal to negative 8. So here are some concluding thoughts. Multiplication and division are inverse operations of each other. The inverse operation of multiplying by a fraction is multiplying by its reciprocal. Why? Because multiplying by the reciprocal is the same thing as dividing by a fraction. And then make sure that you check your work by plugging your solution back into the problem. So I hope you learned how to solve equations with the division and multiplication properties. Thanks for watching.